We were hearing from former President Trump about the economy, Vice President Harris outlining her strategy, her plan last week in Raleigh, North Carolina. And really, the economy is the biggest concern for voters ahead of the November election. So to talk more on this, I do want to bring in Dan Casey, who is an investment advisor and founder at Bridge River Advisors and Panic Room Retirement, to talk more about this. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with this because there's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of movement when it comes to the economy, when it comes to inflation over the past week, 2 weeks. So at this point in time, where does the economy stand? How strong is the economy?
And that's the funny thing. Like, I don't see any signs that the economy is any in dire straits at all. Again, unemployment, it has ticked up a little bit, but it's still at all-time high. I mean, all-time low. I'm sorry. Before COVID, it was about this rate, so it's not horrible. Job creation's robust. The economy's growing thanks to the consumer. So, and the stock market again at all-time high. So, nothing is showing me that we're in trouble or the economy is in trouble.
Okay, so that's some good news as folks are perhaps a little bit concerned. When it comes to inflation, we've heard the latest reports that inflation is slowing. Can you really just describe what inflation is to the average citizen, and is slowing good, and how significant are these new numbers?
Yeah, so inflation really, to sum it up, is when we print a lot of dollars. If there's more dollars out there, it devalues the dollar, so you need more of it to buy the same goods. So that's basically inflation, and that's kind of what we did, right? We printed a lot of money, handed it out to everybody, so there was a lot of money slushing around, and we had to do it, frankly. In my opinion, with COVID, we had to get that money out there to avoid a complete calamity. So inflation spiked, highest it was in 40 years, 9.1% back in 2022. But it has been slowly coming down. And we're at about 2.9% inflation right now. We always, the Fed wants 2%, and 2% is a good, not a horrible number. People, you say, well, why don't we just go down to zero? It's because in a normal economy, a normal robust economy where we have some decent GDP, you're going to have some basic inflation. So we want to keep it around a 2% thing, and we're almost there. Not to joke about inflation, but really the hardest hit people are the people who love breakfast, because it seems like eggs, bacon, juice, the top three things that are still really, really high with inflation.
And why is that? I mean, I know that there was a lot of concern with bird flu, and that might be the reason why egg prices are so high. But when it comes to maybe some of these other items and products that we're really feeling the squeeze on, what triggers the inflation? What triggers all of that to happen?
Yeah, so it was basically shortages, and of course the eggs and all that, and chicken. Talk to any restaurant owner, is what that, along with the bird flu, caused that. But really shortages, and for instance, auto insurance is spiked tremendously, and that can be tracked back to used car sales, and other cars went just gangbusters, and so people owned more cars. They were able to go up to maybe higher end cars. Insurance cost goes up. So it's all really related to the massive interest rate spike, the massive amounts of money that we put into the market, and all pretty much related to COVID still.
So when we think about the economy and we hear words like interest or inflation, what is the connection? Because the economy, you're saying, is good. We do see inflation slowing, but it's still, maybe higher than the Fed wants it to be. Are they one and the same, or are they different? Can you kind of outline that? Because I think when the average person talks, you just kind of lump everything together, and I'm not sure if that's accurate or not.
Just clarify, you mean inflation and interest rates?
Right, connected with the economy. Are they all one and the same? How are they connected, if at all?
Yeah, so the idea with inflation, again, we understand what that is as far as a heated economy can produce inflation. So what the Fed does and what's in their arsenal to fight that is to raise interest rates, and that's That's the Fed funds rate, or that's the rate that banks charge each other to move money back and forth. And it does trickle down to you and I and businesses. And really, that's what they're trying to do. When they raise interest rates, they curb borrowing and lending from businesses, and it causes them to slow down so we don't get so overheated and causing inflation to go crazy. So that's kind of what they attempted to do, is slow down the economy, and it's worked. And in my opinion, they should have started to cut rates the last time, but hopefully they'll do it next time. We're just really, really restrictive right here up at the 5.33% is where the Fed last landed the rate. So we've got to start cutting rates again, in my opinion, just so we don't go too far.
This is an election year. Both tickets are talking about the economy. How much of an influence are the elections coming up when we talk about Wall Street, when we talk about the economy, when we talk about consumer confidence? There's always that big question mark as to how all of this might change depending on who takes office. We're in a very unique time. What can you share with us from that economic standpoint?
So clearly, in my opinion, the market has priced in a Trump win. They've also priced in that the Fed will begin to cut rates and continue to do so throughout the year. So I think that's the biggest thing that could spark a drop in the market, is if Trump doesn't win, or if the Fed decides that they don't want to lower rates. I think that could add some serious volatility to it. VP Harris in the past has just some really restrictive policies towards businesses, banning fracking and things like that. And I know she's becoming more central on that topic. But if you're in the past not have policies that are great for businesses, that's not going to be great for the market. And because we've seen Trump before in the Trump bump, I think the market will continue to do very well if he gets into office. But of course, there's a ton of things that could change that. But that's kind of what I think. And usually in an election year, 83% of the time we're up in the high single digits. And of course, it depends too. You can go crazy looking at these statistics, but whether if you go back in the past, a Democrat or Republican gets in, it also depends on who's control the House and the Congress. So it's all just going to depend on who gets all those, and we'll see what happens. It's always interesting, right? Volatility, absolutely. I guess, is the key thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I did want to go back because you said that at least from the financial sector, it's locked in on a Trump win. How does that work when it comes to forecasting and, having that confidence? What's at play there?
That we think another President Trump will continue to do good for businesses. And that's really the core beliefs, right? President Trump wants to help businesses along with everybody else, so he says, and businesses obviously employ us, so we want that to be for them to do well. That increases obviously tax revenue, GDP. So that's the idea, and we saw that before when he became president. He lowered corporate taxes from 33 to 25%. That was made permanent. Unfortunately, our personal tax rates, that drop was not made permanent. But we know what it looks like. We've been there before. So we know he'll probably be good for businesses and therefore the stock market. And again, it's just back to VP Harris's past record not being so good for businesses. That might hurt the market if she does start to get traction.
And also, is the uncertainty causing that potential drop? Because we haven't seen a President Harris. We've seen a President Trump. We haven't seen a President Harris. She's just only recently outlined her economic plan. So is the X factor, is the big question mark also factoring into that?
It is. The stock market loves certainty. If it knows what's going to happen and everything is the status quo, the market loves it, and it tends to go up. Yeah, anytime that we're going to get something new, if something changes, stock market doesn't like that. So just be aware that we're going to have a lot of volatility going into the election.
And when you talk about volatility, what does that look like? What are you expecting?
A lot like what we just saw, where the VIX, the volatility metric, went up, from the norm of about 18, 20 up to 60, dramatically having a massive sell-off. But it proved to really not be that bad and didn't stay. And we're on our way to maybe getting back to that. back to the all-time highs. So I think just a lot of that type of volatility, especially with everything's being run by computers and algorithms, and I just don't expect little corrections here and there as much as these massive corrections when certain algorithms and equations spark these computers to start massively selling. So it's a snowball effect.
So from the financial sector, the outlook is likely volatility. What advice would you give to folks who might be currently investing in stocks or looking ahead to the next 6 to 9 months or so? What advice would you want to share with folks?
So we at Panic Proof Retirement, we always make sure that our clients are in the right buckets. If you want growth, the best growth you can get, well, then put your money in the stock market. Just know what you're getting into and know that you cannot start pulling money out every time it corrects. So massive growth, long-term growth, stock market makes sense. But if you're getting near retirement or in retirement, you definitely want to have some buckets of money that are protected from massive stock market crashes. Guaranteed income. Studies have shown people who have guaranteed income in retirement are much more happier. So guaranteed income and just a bucket of money that's super safe, that you'll never lose anything. So it's each bucket has its own purpose, and each purpose is usually finding the right investment for that purpose.
Dan, before we let you go, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our Live Now from Fox viewers?
Well, first of all, just thanks for having me. Let's all just buckle up and brace up, because I'm sure the next few months should be interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting. That is a good choice of words right there. Dan Casey, thank you so much for taking the time to join us right here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate it.
Thank you.